My brother forged our father's will and left me with nothing, so I took him to court and left him penniless. My father passed away last year. It was devastating for me because he was the one parent who truly supported me. My brother Dan, 38 million, was always the favorite in the eyes of some relatives because he was charming and good at talking his way into things, even if it meant lying through his teeth. I always knew Dan was selfish, but I never thought he'd stoop this low. Turns out I underestimated him. Dan has been manipulating situations since we were kids. When we were younger, if money went missing from my mom's purse, he'd tell her he saw me take it, and she'd believe him. Later, she'd find the money in his room, but by then, I'd already been punished. When we were teens, our dad bought me a used laptop for school. A week later, it disappeared. Months later, I found out Dan sold it to one of his friends for cash. His excuse? You weren't using it enough, and I needed the money more than you. Dad scolded him, but never cut him off. I think Dad always hoped Dan would grow up. Spoiler, he didn't. Before Dad passed, he told me he had a will. He wanted everything split equally between me and Dan, except for Dad's old house, which he wanted me to have because I'd been living there and taking care of it for years. After the funeral, Dan suddenly started acting cagey about paperwork. He said things like, "You don't need to stress about the legal stuff. I'll handle it." That was my first red flag. A few weeks later, Dan presented Dad's will to the lawyer. According to this will, everything went to him. The house, the savings, even Dad's coin collection. The only thing I supposedly got was an emotional keepsake, a watch worth maybe $50. When I questioned it, Dan smirked and said, "Don't tell me you actually thought Dad wanted you to have the house. You're always so dramatic. Dad knew you couldn't handle big responsibilities." When I told him Dad had said otherwise, he replied, "Memories aren't proof. Maybe you imagined it." That "maybe you imagined it" line made my blood boil. It was classic Dan, make me doubt myself so I'd give up. But this time, I didn't. I told the lawyer I wasn't convinced. Dan rolled his eyes and muttered to the lawyer, "She's just trying to start trouble." It's embarrassing. Thankfully, the lawyer took me seriously and had the will examined. Surprise, surprise, the signature was a forgery. The date on the will was also after Dad's death. When I confronted Dan, he actually laughed. "Fine, you caught me. But you really think a judge will care? Families settle these things privately all the time. If you take me to court, you'll just waste money and look petty." That was the moment I decided, court it is. Dan strutted into court like he was untouchable. He told anyone who would listen that I was a greedy little sister who couldn't accept Dad loved him more. During testimony, he kept smirking at me, as if daring me to beat him. But the evidence spoke for itself. The forensic handwriting expert, the mismatched dates, even text messages where Dan complained to a friend about having to redo the will after Dad's death. The judge didn't just rule in my favor. She called Dan's actions deliberate, deceitful, and malicious. She ordered that all assets be divided as per the original will Dad made, which meant I got the house, my share of the savings, and all personal items Dad left for me. But here's where it gets even better. Because forging a will is a crime, the court also slapped Dan with massive legal fees and restitution costs. By the time everything was over, he had to sell his own home to pay off what he owed. The charming, smooth-talking Dan who always got away with everything, he's now living in a small rented apartment with no savings, no property, and a reputation in the family that's completely destroyed. When he called to make peace a month later, his version of peace was me giving him money so he could get back on his feet. I told him, "You wanted everything, remember? Now you have exactly what you earned, nothing." Then I hung up. But last night I went to log into my online banking, and my password didn't work. When I finally got in after resetting it, my stomach dropped. Every account was empty. Full story on channel. Link below.